Hi friends, Starry, and how many of you think that container gardening is a no-brainer? Raise your hand, raise your hand, because I know there's a lot of people out there that really think that when it comes to container gardening, all you got to do is find a container, drill some holes in it, put some dirt in it, and then you're good, right? I mean, come on, how many really think that that's how you container garden? Probably a lot, but I'm going to kind of blow away the myth of container gardening and really walk you through some awesome tips and facts that you need to know before you even get started, because I want you to have a successful container gardening. You know, here I am, I'm living in this tiny apartment, probably even smaller than a tiny house. It's tiny, and I don't really have much of a backyard. At least the backyard's not mine. I really have to rely on container gardening for my vegetables, my flowers, and my herbs. Now I have use of a garden, but it's limited use, which means if I want to expand, I can't expand in a garden. I have to expand using containers. But the great thing about containers is it allows you to garden wherever you are at, and I love it. But there is a right way and a wrong way to get started and to implement it. And we want to be successful, right? Because it does take some time, and it does take a little bit of money to get started with container gardening. And we don't want to fail, right? We don't want to fail. We want success. So let's go inside the greenhouse here, and I'm going to walk you through some really easy tips to get you started and get you thinking outside the box when it comes to container gardening, so that you can have the fruit of the harvest every time. Okay, number one, let's talk about the containers. What kind of containers, Starry? Well, you can use just about anything for a container, and I mean anything. We've got, my gosh, well, look in here. I've got conventional containers that I've gotten throughout the years at Goodwill. People throw it out at the recycling center. In fact, I just got a good deal at a garden center. Look at this, $10.95. Got it for $2.49. I go to Goodwill, not Goodwill, but the dollar store. The dollar store has these really nifty baskets that most people put their envelopes and odds and ends. I use them for containers. And what I do is I line them with a newspaper or with cardboard, and it drains well. Perfect size for some of my herbs. I got my basil going on in there. And I just bought some tubs. Look at that. This is tubs that are supposed to hold ice for your pop. It was advertised at, actually, Walmart. And I walked in there, and they're so pretty. And I saw the price. They were $2, and I'm like, $2? There you go. That is going to be a container for my garden. All right. Now you also know that I have the green stalk. In fact, let me go show it to you real quick. Now my green stalk, what I like about it is it doesn't require a lot of soil, it's self-watering, and it can grow a lot of produce per square foot. It blows away gardening in a garden. Really, it does. So you can see I've got this already going. I have my other green stalk. I've got one more that I'm going to be putting now more produce in. Like my tomatoes, there's a tomato plant over there. I'm going to be stacking these up with more vegetable plants, just simply because I ran out of garden space. So just because we can't till up more garden space, I rely on, okay, green stalk per square foot. It'll blow what I can do in the garden. So perfect. Now with your containers, again, remember every container needs to be able to drain. So no matter what shape or size, make sure you drill the holes on the bottom. That's number one. Number two, if you are using, say, old containers from last year, like here's one. Look, you can see there was soil in here. I don't know what kind of soil was in here. I don't know how long it's been in there. All your containers from last year need to be bleached with 1 part bleach and 3 parts water. And do not ever reuse the soil that has been in a container. I don't care how good a produce you got from the harvest last year. When you reuse your soil, you put your plants at risk for pests and disease. All that soil should go right into your compost pile, and you should clean every container at the beginning of the season before you even get started. Now let's talk about soil, because sometimes, and I fell underneath this fallacy, this misconception, is that I could just go out, dig up some dirt and put it, because dirt is free, right? I can go out in the woods, dig it up. I could go, we had an old garden back in Wisconsin. I could use some of that garden soil. No, 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 no. No, no, and no. You cannot put just any old dirt in your containers. And the reason being is this is a small area. And you need soil that is going to be loose and loomy, and it will not retain that water and oversaturate. It's very difficult to fertilize and feed your plants in a container because of the small space. So soil is really important. And this means you may have to invest some money. Now there's two ways to do this. You can create your own soil by buying like some sand and some peat moss and some vermiculite. You can mix your own soil, okay? And that is a cheap way to do it, but you're going to have to buy these different bags. Or I would also recommend you could go and buy some pre-mix. Now I've got two that I really like. I have the Patio Plus Premium Outdoor Potting Mix, and this is all organic. And this is like the standard organic for container gardening. You'll see this brand talked about a lot. It's black gold. And the nice thing about it is it does have already, the nice thing about it is it has all natural ingredients, but it already has the fertilizer in it. It's a perfect mix specifically for containers. And this is really important. Don't skip the soil. Because you will be very disappointed with the outcome. Now there's two ways that you can fill up your container. You can do it from the dirt all the way from the bottom to the top, which I still think is just a waste. Remember, plants, technically most vegetable plants and flowers and herbs do not have an extensive root system, so they don't need a lot of depth. They just don't. So kind of check out what you're going to be planting in your container and then, make adjustments. And if it's a shallow vegetable, don't waste your soil, okay? So what I do on the bottom, I either fill it up with gravel, or right now I have, look at that, I've got some wood chips. I'm going to fill up that bottom with some wood chips. And that way, actually, this is going to help facilitate really good drainage in my container, either with the gravel or the wood chips, because what's going to happen is you're going to put that dirt in, and you know what? It's going to compact. The dirt will compact. That's why you need something light and loomy so it drains. And then you have the soil on top, and then it's going to hit the wood chips on the bottom, and it's going to facilitate that draining, and then it's going to go right through those holes that you created in your container. See how that works? Then I'm just going to simply fill up my container with my black gold. Or your own mix. And will you save money if you do your own mix? You probably will. The black gold, I will tell you, I got it on sale for $12. That kind of gives you an idea. And that's the big bag. So that was 12 bucks. Now while I'm filling this up, I like to wet my soil before I plant my seeds or my plants. So I'm going to get a little bit of water in there and kind of mix that up. Now, just to show you how deep I went, I'm probably about like that, okay? Before I start hitting the wood chips. Now, here's something that you really have to consider. Fertilization. You need to fertilize your plants throughout the growing season. That is why I really recommend the black gold, because there's fertilizer already in it. And the same thing if you buy another brand besides black gold. It's really nice to have that fertilizer built into the soil already. The reason being is when you add your own fertilizer to this container, a lot of it is going to get washed away. It just will. So if you're adding, say, organic fish fertilizer or whatever, Epsom salts or whatever, every time you water it, it is going to, a lot of it's just going to leach out and just drain right down to the bottom. So keep that in the back of your mind. That's why it's highly recommended to just get the soil that has the fertilizer built in. Now, if you're doing your own mix, of course, you're going to have to get some fertilizer. And if that is the road that you're going to take, buy granules, slowly released granules that you can add to the soil, and every time you water it, it'll be released slowly. Now, some of it will get washed away, but hopefully a lot of it will be able to stay in that soil and feed that plant. Now, I'm going to start putting my herbs in here, and then I'm going to show you the very last trick that I do with my containers to really make it successful. Now I'll show you what I'm planting. This is actually a spearmint, and I'm companion planting it with this lavage, which is actually a herb that tastes kind of like a celery. Right? Look at how beautiful those leaves are. It kind of looks like a celery leaf. And then because I have a little bit of room, I am actually going to put a little bit of basil seed, and this is a purple basil seed right on top here. I like to use every square inch even when I container garden. So a little dead space there, that basil should start coming up, and then I've already have that. Don't be afraid to plant very closely together. You know, we get into this false idea that we shouldn't plant plants close. We shouldn't crowd them. It's called intense gardening. Intense, I don't know if it's intense square foot gardening. There's a name for it. But I did a video on it, and the proof really is in the pudding. You can grow things right on top of each other. You really can. And these people who, you know, I see these wonderful, beautiful gardens, and they have, you know, a cabbage head here, and a cabbage head here, and a cabbage head here, and nothing in between. And I think, oh, you could plant lettuce in between. You could plant kale in between. You could plant, in that space, onions. See, that's how I think. I think about every square inch being filled with some type of food. And you can do the same thing in your container. And you know, it depended on the container size, but because this container is a little bit bigger, it's going to be perfect. And then I just put a little bit of soil over my seed, and then I'm just going to spray it, mist it lightly, and I'm gonna be good to go.